Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to ChasingCinema.com's official YouTube channel. Today is Saturday, which means it's Miscellaneous Day, which means I could talk about whatever I want, which is something that I love doing because, I don't know, sometimes you just want to break free of the chains and the restrictions, even though I kind of made those chains and restrictions, but I don't really see them as chains and restrictions. But it's nice on Saturday that I could talk about whatever I want. In case you missed it, yesterday, me and Mr. James Shue reviewed Pan, the new Peter Pan movie starring Hugh Jackman. Go check it out. I'll put you the link right here. Or you could find it in the description box. Either way, go check it out. Or you could read my review of Pan and The Walk at ChasingCinema.com. Both films came out yesterday. But today is Saturday, like I said, and I'm going to talk about whatever I want, which is fun. And I know I could do that every day. People are like, well, Jake, why don't you just make every day whatever you want? But then I get lazy, and like sometimes I'll just be like, have nothing to say, where at least like, oh, Monday, Wednesday, I have movie news, this and this and this. So it keeps me, on a structure. Maybe if I ever break free from it, I will, but we'll see. And the thing I want to talk about today is last Friday night, me and my girlfriend went and saw An Evening with Kevin Smith at the Vinyl at the Hard Rock Hotel. Now, if you aren't familiar with Kevin Smith is also known to the world as Silent Bob. He is a writer-director that brought us movies like Clerks and Dogma and Chasing Amy, Jersey Girl. He brought us Red State and most recently Tusk. And he's also done other films in between, but nonetheless, those are, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. If he did Cop Out. There are definitely some in-betweens that I'm not mentioning. But nonetheless, he's a filmmaker that I fell in love with very, very early in my life, and I've been following him very closely ever since. I have all of his Q&As, which he does. An Evening With is basically Kevin Smith on a stage answering questions and telling stories for 4 hours. He has 5 or 6 DVDs of him doing this. And I've seen him do podcast live. He's also like one of the huge pioneers in the podcast world. He's created a podcast empire. He's created Smodcast, the Smodcast empire, where he does like 6 podcasts now. He does Fat Man on Batman, Smodcast, Jay and Silent Bob Get Old. I mean, the list is endless. So I've seen him do Hollywood Babylon. I've seen him do these podcasts live. Never had the opportunity to sit down and really talk to him. But I would honestly tell you that he's had a big influence on me and me creating our podcast and me creating, getting my voice out there. He has this great message that we'll talk about a little bit later. But so nonetheless, he's a filmmaker. And last Friday, he was here in Vegas doing a Q&A at the Vinyl. And I've always wanted to see An Evening With. The podcasts are very different. They're a lot of fun too, but the tone is different. He's not really telling stories. They're kind of just going on. They'll either be talking about news or telling things about upcoming events or somewhat of sorts. They're very entertaining, but they're very different because Kevin Smith is working with somebody rather than just having Kevin Smith stand up there and answering your questions and talking about what you want to talk about. Now, first, I did not ask a question. No, I didn't. I don't really have a question for him, and usually seeing his Q&As, I know he answers about 3 in the 4 or 5 hours, that as long as they are. Ours wasn't that long. Ours was 3.5 hours. Or 3:15. But I didn't ask a question. I didn't really think of one. I didn't really have one. And I kind of just wanted to sit back and enjoy it. I mean, it was fun. It was it was really cool. I was front row. I was literally maybe 3 feet away from him. So it was really exciting. I just kind of wanted to enjoy myself. And though I will say towards like the 3rd hour, I was in pain from sitting in these seats that weren't that comfortable. I had a great time. He talked a lot about, it's funny. I mean, I could be, it seems like, I feel like I could be a Kevin Smith biographer sometimes. There was a point in his life, he's the guy who, dirty jokes, drug jokes. I mean, he was the guy who was kind of known for that. But Kevin Smith never really smoked pot or did anything bad until he turned about 40. When he was going through this phase where he felt like he wasn't really sure of his passion, his filmmaking abilities, and he started smoking weed. And ever since then, his work has definitely changed, but, he's never kind of gotten lazy. He argues that he's never been lazy, he's never been more productive. But if you listen to him, he's talked a lot more inspirational. I'm not saying he wasn't inspirational before, but he's very much more in touch with his emotions, it seems like, now that he's started smoking. And, going in, I was expecting great comedy, which I got. But it was a lot of feel-good stuff, too. I mean, he talked a lot about, like inspirational stuff. I mean, he talks greatly about how everyone should be podcasting right now, which a lot of people are doing, including myself, because it's free. It's not controlled by anyone. It's not dictated by anyone. Anybody could do it. It's free. Anyone could do it, and everyone should do it because he says our voice is our currency. The way we see the world is unlike anything else in the entire universe because no one sees the world as the same as us. No matter if it's your spouse, your family, no matter what, you see the world in such a specific way. And he talked about how people should have podcasts and should be able to share that voice. He talked about how he was able to share that voice, and the majority of the conversation was heavily on that. And then we kind of talked about a few of his movies, and we talked about the world of the motion picture. We talked about Richard Linklater and his film Slacker and how that inspired him, as well as Quentin Tarantino and Reservoir Dogs. He actually brought up School of Rock, which I reviewed on Thursday. If you go back and watch that video, I talked about School of Rock because he brought it up in reference. He didn't really talk about it. And then we talked about working with Johnny Depp, like for a good hour and a half. And that was the most fun because everyone knows, if you've ever watched this video, you guys know how I feel about Johnny Depp. Like, he's a great actor who seemed to be way more interested in makeup and clothing styles than he was acting at a certain point in his career. He did Black Mass, still a movie where he put on a lot of makeup, but was able to give us a really solid performance of kind of what somewhat of a normal person would be, because he's not really a normal person. He's more of a monster. But hearing these stories about how Kevin Smith's daughter, Harley Quinn Smith, and Lily Rose, I believe her name is, Lily Rose Depp, and them growing up, and how Johnny Depp to his daughter is only just the guy who makes great pancakes and things like that. But he was talking about Johnny Depp's venture on Tusk. And he made Johnny Depp sound so down to earth, and he was talking about how, Kevin Smith, guys, like I said, if you aren't familiar with him, he's a very loved filmmaker, a very loved person by his audience. Like, I'm not trying to downgrade his popularity, but obviously if you've never heard of him, he doesn't, he's not everyone's cup of tea. I'll put it that way. But his following is diehard. Like, he has a following and it's diehard, but his movies don't make $100 million. He doesn't do really big movies like that. And it just him talking about trying to get Johnny Depp to do his movie and texting Johnny saying, hey, Johnny, you want to do a movie? And like him explaining that the 3 dots were coming up and him having to like just have that anticipation, like, oh my God, what did I just do? Was a lot of fun. I credit a lot to Kevin Smith when it comes to me in my journey with motion picture. Did he make me want to be a critic? No. Did he influence me in my movie watching? And did he help me, inspire me to create a podcast? Absolutely. And I will always, I'm very thankful for that. A lot of people went up and said, hey, I have a podcast. The first guy was like, I have a podcast because of you. I'm 67 years, I think he said 67. And I have a podcast because of your influence. And, and he just keeps saying how many people come up to him and say, I started a podcast because of you. And I am the same with that. I think that's heavily a claim to him, but it was just a really good time. I believe he's traveling right now. You can always find out where he's going at csmod.com. If you don't listen to his podcast, I recommend giving it a listen. All of his podcasts are really fun. It depends on what you're into, though. I will say, each podcast is very different. If you're a big Batman fan, listen to Fat Man on Batman. It is the greatest podcast ever. If you're a Batman fan, he literally just talks hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours about Batman. And you could YouTube his review on The Dark Knight Rises, and it is the greatest thing ever to hear a grown man of 40-something-year-olds cry about certain things that I cried about in that movie because Batman means so much to both of us. You could watch some of his movies. Watch Clerks, watch Chasing Amy, watch Red State, watch Tusk. I dare all of you to watch Tusk. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's definitely different, and it's definitely out there. But look up Tusk. Read about the backstory to that. Tusk is such an interesting movie, which I also watched recently. Tusk came up as an idea from a story they did on a podcast. They found this story on Gumtree, which is basically like the equivalent from Craigslist to like living places. And someone was saying, oh, well, I'll let you live in my mansion if you wear this walrus suit for 2 hours a day. Crazy story. And they talk about it for like 45 minutes. They go and they're just cracking up and they said, well, what if there was this character and what if there was that character or what if this happened? And that them talking right there would eventually become a real movie. And, he says, if you want to see this movie, on Twitter, Walrus Yes or Walrus No. There was one Walrus No before the movie was made. Now, if you look up Walrus No, there's a lot. But Walrus Yes took over Twitter. And how cool is that? And then watching that movie and then listening to the podcast, there's some of the podcasts on the end credits. But he wrote a blog about it. And you could at silentbobspeaks.com. I mean, it's just really, really cool. And it was a really fun experience for me. And I just wanted to share it with you guys. I didn't really have anything else to talk about today. But I just thought it was really great fun. And if I could, I would love to kind of extend that world to people who've never really listened to Kevin Smith or gone on to see some of his stuff. You could YouTube so much, I'm sure, or listen to any of his podcasts. I think his original podcast, which is called Smodcast, is on 300, 400 episodes. So go give it a listen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into this video. If your thoughts on Kevin Smith, like or dislike, let me know down here in the comment section. It'll turn this one-way street into a two-way dialogue, and we could have that conversation about movies and Kevin Smith in general. I'd love to have it. Also, right above the comment section, there's a thumbs up video. Click that. Let me know you enjoyed what you saw today. And just me talking about Kevin Smith. I mean, overall, I guess you could call this a review. I had a great time. The show was amazing. Very inspirational. Kevin Smith is awesome. Such a down-to-earth guy. So, thumbs up for that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Chasing Cinema's YouTube channel. My name is Jacob Tiranno, and please continue chasing cinema. In case you missed it, yesterday I reviewed Pan, the new film with Jack.